Thank you so much. I think it's supposed to be a fireside chat, and I think my responsibility is to ignite fire for a battery man. I think he's a battery man. We use battery for jump start, and I don't know what I'm going to do. So it's going to be a tough job. Yeah. I think it's a great initiative from Rai, MMR this time. We are not only learning from retail industry, we are also learning from other industry, and thanks to GPW and RAA. It's a great initiative. Even the earlier conversation, we learned a lot. And this, I don't want to miss an opportunity. Anyway, my role is going to be very, very limited. And when I have gone through some of the work Amara Raja Group has been doing, we also heard, no? Culture eats strategy for breakfast. I think this company eats culture for everything. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, everything. Because their culture is very strongly imbibed. It's called the Amara Raja Way. And I'm also curious to know what is Amara Raja Way. And I think while I've understood few things from whatever information is available in public domain, I think it's better to listen from Mr. JK. Thank you, JK. Thank you for your time. I think over to you. We have only 30 minutes, but we have to cover a lot of things.
Thank you, Jeeva. At the outset, my apologies for that long introduction. I should have taken care of that. And most importantly, a great thanks to Mr. Venkatramana, my senior, my mentor, my good friend, and of course to Dr. Lawrence, Meenakshi, and Jeeva for bringing the session. Another surprise that I want to give, it's not 30 minutes, it's 20 minutes. I don't know how we'll show justice. Fine. So go ahead and shoot, whatever.
Right. Thank you, JK. So I know because Amara Raja Way is a well-crafted document and culture code. I know Netflix culture code is what we have learned so far, and then there are several other organizations also tried. For example, Reliance, we have a culture code called Choices, and then we are also institutionalizing it. Can you just take us through what are some of the components of Amara Raja Way? How did you really build the overall framework? I know it is a very detailed framework. Maybe you can also use the PPT, sure, what you have.
Yeah. So, friends over here, I should say that Jeeva had a chat with me, and I had put together some things. I'm not going to take you through the whole thing, which I promised Jeeva, because this is a subject that is extremely dear to us as an organization, because we culminated to what we call as the Amara Raja Way, was a journey from somewhere from 2006 to 2011. Not that there was no culture before. The fact that we rechristined and reapproached it to it in a different manner. And that's been a long journey. It all started with what we call as the Future Search conference that we did in the group way back in 2006, which culminated to a conclusion that we need to sort of craft and position the values back to the organization of what we have been practicing. It was a soul-searching exercise right from the operator to the leadership, including all the boards, saying that what has made us successful so far, what is that we have failed on, and what could take us to the future. And that was how this whole culmination sort of started. So I would just go ahead and, okay, these are all basic concepts. Let me move ahead, otherwise this would take time. So starting with the group, some of you might know Amaron Batteries is pretty famous. People from retail wants a brand. So let me tell about the Amaron brand. That's one of the businesses that we do. The fact that we also do a lot of other businesses. We are into infra, we are into electronic manufacturing services, we are into EPC business, we have an engineering business, and the fact that we as battery manufacturers that we are known about, we also have a foods business. Some of you might note that the beverages that you see in Cafe Coffee Day or a Decathlon are manufactured by the Amara Raja Group. So, multiple businesses, but we have what we call as the core purpose statement, which was evolved, of course, by the founder in 1985. And this group, you should notice that the fact that the founder started this business when he was 52. Just imagine somebody who was having a luxurious life in US decides to come back on a one-way ticket and invest in his village. And that's how the whole journey started. And today, it is something like 16,000 crores as a group. So his core purpose was, his intent of coming back was more to provide employment to the people of his village and at best extend it to the district. So his a complete outlook was to set up a manufacturing, and then it moved on to various businesses. So if you see the core purpose statement, it talked predominantly about transformation, it talked about enhancing quality of life, and it spoke about better, making things better and better. You know, today is better than yesterday, and tomorrow should be better than what we are today. And you know, in that fashion. So he said that there is never a destination, and we need to keep on making things better. So that was the core belief. So that is why the core purpose defines as to why we exist, and then we have the larger group vision, which again has some key elements. I will not touch upon that. But the purpose is what we exist for. The vision, this is not each business's vision. Just imagine we are 8 companies, 17 businesses. So each company has its own vision, or each business has its own vision. But the fact that from a group perspective, this is the litmus test. Are we entering into businesses that fulfills this core purpose and fulfills this vision? And that's how we have even started new businesses, even the most recent one as well. And then we got on to the values. Now, the values, like I said, was a future search conference that we did with the operator up to the board. And then we came around what we called as the 5 core values. I would say the laundry list was something like 23 values that we realized which got distilled. And from 23, the debate started. And that's why 2006 to 2011, the journey was. And these are the 5 values. You know, innovation, excellence, entrepreneurship, responsibility, all that. Now, you might wonder, yeah, these are standards every company has. But the fact that we also gave a color to each of these elements, each of these values. And we also went through this discovery process. After having finalized values, we gave color with a certain meaning making, which is a long story. I would not share that here. But more interestingly, we also found the connection to the 5 elements of nature. You know, and that's beautifully synchronized. There, if you see, for example, you can see experiences is something that we are relating it to water. And water, we are, of course, with blue. You know, for example, when you immerse yourselves into water, every part of the body is touched. And that's what we are linking the water element to experiences. Responsibility, obviously earth, that is. I mean, it's not just about the CSR responsibility. We are speaking also of responsibility as colleagues to each other. You know, how do you provide for mutual respect and so on. And having said that, we discovered yet another aspect of what we call as the mind states, highly inspired by Harvard Gardner's 5 minds of the future. We made, of course, corrections to that whole thing. And we realized that if you have to have innovation, you got to have a synthesizing mind. Now, this similarly for responsibility, you know, you got to have a respectful and ethical mind state. So this is what came together as what we call the core purpose, the group vision, the 5 values, the 5 elements of nature, the 5 mind states and whatnot, the 5 colors. And that's how our corporate identity completely changed in 2011. It was earlier a different identity. And this became the 5 colors, which is actually moving in a forward direction in a symphony manner. Now, all this is important. And of course, Jeeva, I'll stop here because this is what all we call. Now, there is a lot of living the Amara Raja way that we obviously do in the organization.
Yeah, thank you so much. I could relate to your baseline, got to be a better way, right?
Yeah.
That means, I mean, today should be better than yesterday. I think that's what probably prompted you to come out with new code, or rather, no, refine the Amara Raja Way.
Yeah.
I very interestingly connected the 5 elements. My curious question is, you are into diverse business. So you are into batteries, electronic manufacturing, soft beverages, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
And whatever the beverage in Decathlon which is available, I understood that no, it is from Amara Raja. So beverage manufacturing. So we are into diverse business. And diverse people are there. So all these concepts are good. I'm just playing devil's advocate. So it's good for corporate employees. But you have diverse business. So how do you really institutionalize the whole Amara Raja Way in diverse business with a diverse workforce?
Sure. In fact, one of the key things is that we really enjoy is living the Amara Raja Way. That's where I stop. Jeeva, the whole point is having these as possibly recorded or made in brochures is fine, but more importantly is how do you live it. So actually in terms of living, we have linkages not just in the company walls or factory buildings and all that. You will find that Amara Raja Way even present there. That's one. Okay. 2 is we have our own Bible, Quran, Bhagavad Gita. There is an Amara Raja Way book that is there, which is completely important for any new person to join in to assimilate what that means. Now, it's not just a compulsion that you should learn and pass the exam, which is a requirement. Okay. In the early days, within a time frame, you got to do that. But also the fact that we do large-scale interactive processes. And this LSIP, or what we call as the large-scale driven, is not done by any outsider. It's completely anchored by leadership teams, even for the operators. So we have a train the trainer and certification program, which is done by the OD division of the Amara Raja group. It's a COE by itself. So we do that institutionalization process through which they also get to know. Just imagine, every year we bring around 650 people. We have 18,000 people, and there is always retirement, there is also joining in. So typically 650 people are brought together under one roof. In fact, we have a specific auditorium for that reason in our center, which is there in Tirupati. From all locations we bring there, and we get them to understand this deeply with the leaders. So we have a 2-day program, a 1-day program. That's one aspect. Then it's also integrated into the performance management system to see that people really live that. Now there again, it's not stick alone, it's also carrot. And there are a lot of recognitions around how people live this Amara Raja Way and role model them.
Yeah, it's interesting because most of us are HR folks from retail industry. So can you just talk about the LSIP process which you're doing? So one is 600 people, 650 people. Yeah. Is it an annual ritual, or is it happening every now and then? Because people will be joining anytime, right? So they need to understand the way. That is one. Yeah. The second one, maybe you can also continue. So you talked about PMS. So PMS, while you have your KRAs for every role, how do you really measure the behaviors, desired behaviors, what you are expecting from them? So maybe if you could touch upon these 2 areas, it would be great.
So Jeeva, with your permission, I'll still push some slides quickly because the visual thing would be a little more attractive, especially for a retail crowd. So in terms of quickly, I spoke about the NDR, which is a compulsory, within 72 hours you need to do it. There is some cushion provided, but end of the month you won't get your salary unless you get certified on that, which is completely talking about values, who's who, key policies, and so on and so forth, including CSR being such a critical aspect of ours, and ESG in a very high manner. I spoke about the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, which is the Amara Raja Way book. In fact, it goes through its own edition. And Jeeva, you read that, you said. Yeah. It has stories of what each value and what did we do in the past, what are some of the examples, so that people are able to relate to that. In fact, it's available on the company website. Typically, I did say that you go to most of the factories or the offices, you will find reflection of that. And this is something that we are really proud about. Every employee has 5 colors of uniforms at the factory. And women are the most happiest because they get churidar and sari, so men has only trousers and the shirt. So you can wear any color that you want on any day. So you walk into the factory, you will find an amalgamation of the 5 values. Just imagine the employee opening his wardrobe, before the commencement of the shift to wear. You are actually brought to light and awakening, what value shall I wear today? That's the life that comes to. The whole manufacturing locations around, the town also knows about these 5 colors and they know about these 5 values. All may not be able to explain, but people will ask them. So it's important that they know it. And this is, again, right in front of you. So we call it the multiform, not the uniform. Right? So that's what it. You asked about performance management. Various things are assessed. But end of the day, if your attitudes and leader behaviors, which is actually derived out of the 5 values, the Amara Raja Way, if your attitude and leader behavior score is lower than your objective score, then you will not get that higher objective score. You will only get the lower score. So your performance itself gets impacted because of that. And typically you asked about how do you ensure across businesses and different kinds of sectors. Everybody gets to know there has to be this model, and this is what we clearly follow. If you have to sustain a culture, there has to be symbols, there has to be rituals, there has to be role model, there has to be various training like the LSIP I spoke about. There has to be practices and policies, and then it's important to have reinforcements. So this is something that we keep doing.
Okay, right, that's great. So as you're talking about practices, HR practices, what are some of the unique HR practices you have, which is also linked to your culture institutionalization? Yeah. So maybe, I think I read somewhere about your medical insurance. So can you just talk about it? It is very interesting.
From a responsibility perspective, if you go to the responsibility, I said it's not just about the Mother Earth and what we contribute to communities. That's a significant part that we have. But as a matter, for example, we go and study best practices, irrespective of any sector. And then what we say is not just bring in best practices, but what can we create as next practices, right? Medical is one such thing that, in fact, even shareholders ask and write about that. For example, in most sectors, and I'm sure in retail as well, your medical insurance entitlement for a person depends on the level at which the person is. The CXO will get obviously a higher, maybe the front line will be lesser. For us, it's not so. It is linked to the age of the employee. So be it a 40-year-old operator or a 40-year-old general manager, the insurance coverage is the same.
Very interesting.
So what we are saying is, age is what will determine your health situations and things like that. And therefore, why differentiate a coverage between an operator and a general manager or a white or a blue when it comes to those things? In fact, there are a lot of reverse pyramid models in our company. The management staff has to pay much more for a plate of meal than an operator. The subsidy is reversed model. It's it's the reverse pyramid. So if I have to pay, I would be paying, say, 80% of the meal cost. What an operator would pay will be 5%. Right? So many of our models are based around how do we take care of each other based on what strata and what earning ability that they have. So that is one example of policy.
Excellent, excellent. So I also know, I'm also curious because you are a diverse business. So for example, Reliance Retail, we also have a diverse business. We have electronics, we have fashion lifestyle, we have grocery. Every business is different. The target workforce is also is slightly different.
Right.
So when it comes to your organization, when you are having diverse workforce, one of the things is in manufacturing. So manufacturing, generally, there is a need to have contract workforce. And when you are looking at a culture interventions like this, it's very difficult to institutionalize with moving workforce. Contract workforce are not permanent workforce. So how do you manage this challenge?
Right. So I should say in our group, except for infra, we don't have contract labor.
Wow, that's good.
So
It calls for a big round of applause.
Yeah. So if you look at all our manufacturing locations, you can visualize that most manufacturing locations, you take security, you take canteen, which you take maybe transport fleets of buses, are typically contracted out. But in our case, it's not so. All are our own employees. In fact, some of these services we have bundled together and created a services company, which is run like a P&L business, but done captively for all the group companies. And they have very clearly negotiated SLAs and rate contracts signed with every other company. You will find a lot of healthy debates that happen on price
Your
finalization.
culture code is also applicable for them in terms of their
very
PMS?
much, very much.
Okay.
So that's how we operate. So in a way, that way we have ensured infrastructure, you just, it's a moving thing, right?
Correct.
So wherever it has a longevity in terms of that person continuing to do the job, we have only looked at why not be on rolls and why should it be on contract.
Right, great. So being in retail, and in fact, my early part of my career, I was in manufacturing. So whatever I learned in manufacturing, I started, I got an opportunity to apply or experiment in my retail journey, which really helped. Because one of the things is, you are grounded to the people. You have all of, whatever you're doing, it's all grounded with your people, right? That's one of the important things. So in your case, when you are having a diverse workforce, and experience matters a lot, that's also one of your core value.
Yeah.
I strongly believe that an exceptional employee experience leads to a very positive customer experience. If the customers are very happy, they'll be able to really get the top line and bottom line and market share for the company, so that it will also be a compelling place for the shareholders to invest or stakeholders to invest. So I like this model, EX leads to CX, CX leads to SX.
Yeah.
So in your case also, I saw somewhere I read, engaged employees, empowered teams, and collaborative leadership, right? That's a very interesting model. But how do you measure experience? Measuring experience of the ecosystem is always a challenge. So how do you measure experience in your ecosystem?
Sure. So we have this clear survey. It's not an engagement. We don't call it an engagement survey, even I'm saying from early 2000s.
Okay.
We call it AR Speak, which is Amara Raja Speak, which we tell people to speak up. Okay. Of course, anchored through an external agency, so that we don't get to know identity, or rather there is a lot of assurance on identity. So that survey is called Experiences Survey. And that covers almost every other aspect of the life of an employee in Amara Raja, right? So we have actually done a design thinking on we looked at various models, including the Dennis models, and then crafted the whole thing. So if you bundle a few questions, you can find a certain index of a certain aspect. So psychological safety, if you want to know, we know which are those questions which needs to be bundled and understood as psychological safety even at a manager level, leave alone at a business level. If you want to understand, how people are experiencing, be welfare facilities, or be it on rewards and recognition. So there are actually, according to us, there are 21 dimensions, but we can bundle all this and understand how are we improving on all those indexes from time to time. And that's how we collate experiences of employees at various levels, including up to the CEO level.
Okay, right, that's great. So do you really, one is employee experience. So are you really relating to customer experience?
Oh, yeah, sure. In fact, our first level of customer, if you take the batteries business, is typically the Amaron franchisees that we have. We were the pioneers in terms of bringing the battery outside the gullies of India to making it a pit stop and making it a fashionable store in a way. Actually, each of those franchises is our first level. So even their voice of customer at that level is critical, because again, like the way you said, the connectivity, only if those people, those as customers are happy, then only your end customer has its own impact. quality is one important thing, but experience of the person who sells that is also important. So the value experiences come. So we say that even if somebody joins us or comes to us at the main gate of the factory for giving a job application, for example, the security should be able to provide that kind of an experience where the person feels good enough to come again or, feel good about that company. So that way we do. Experience is pretty dear for us.
That's good. That's good. I know we are running short of time. So, but last question. I know Amara Raja, your HR transformation. It was listed as a case study in IIM Ahmedabad.
Yeah.
And in fact, subsequently in Harvard as well. And then most of your companies are also featured in top 100 best companies to work for by GBW. So for our retail folks, if you have to really talk about 2, 3, and I think you also talked about benchmarking. You're always so got a better way every day, right? So in that case, what are some of the things which you think are your signature practices? I know we talked about uniform, we talked about medical insurance, we talked about PMS, we talked about training. What are some of the practices which you think are far superior, maybe which really help you to feature in all these recognitions?
Sure. I think one of the key things that from a collaborative leadership and from an empowered team's perspective that we speak of, at least employees speak of highly at various forums, is the knights at the round table, concept that we have. If you look at our executive committee meetings, if you look at our, except for board meetings, you will find the senior-most person is not actually sitting at the head of the table. Typically that's what tends to happen. And not just from a symbols perspective or symbolic perspective, most of our leaders are highly trained or reprimanded if they were to budge in discussions. They have the last to say, So, we sort of bring in this emphasis off late and term it also as being leader as a coach. You can at best ask questions and that should be reserved to the end, but allow teams. So knights at the round table is nothing but borrowed from the King Arthur's example. So King Arthur, those days when various knights came together, he had a round table and he never sat at any part of it where it signified that he is the head. So knights at the round table meant everybody has their right to express when you come together as an executive committee or you come together as a growth committee and so on. So except for ARCC, which is the Leadership Council at the Apex and the board meetings, nothing else we follow. So that's one practice that I can speak of empowered teams and collaboration.
That's great. I think, time's up. But as a leader, as a coach, I just want to make a point. Even at Reliance Retail, we have different programs to make sure that we are nurturing coaching culture. We have leader as a coach, we have manager as a coach. And we also make sure that all our high potential talent are going through a coaching engagement, irrespective of any roles. I think that's fantastic. And in fact, I recall one of your interviews on coaching. A leader should be able to ask questions. I think you are fortunate to have many of your ex-bosses as coaches. In fact, I do so. And then I think many of you as well. It's time up. Thank you so much, JK.
Thank you, Jeeva. Thank you
fantastic.
so much.
I learned a lot. I'm sure it is also useful for everyone. Thank you so much.